Here's a few kickers I'm looking at on the waiver wire heading into week 14. The first guy is Kaine Fairbain of the Houston Texans. Fairbain had a great game versus the Colts in the week 13 battle. Was Fairbain. He hit a 50-yarder. He hit a 35-yarder, 2 PATs, but he missed a 54-yarder. But still a solid game, 10 fantasy points. This Houston team, they get in the red zone a lot, and they make some plays. And Fairbain, I didn't have him on my top 15 the rest of the season at kicker. So check that video out if you haven't. But he's still a guy for some weeks. I think he could do good. And next week he's got a good matchup versus the Chicago Bears that give up the 10th most fantasy points to kickers. So Fairbain, he's available in 81% of fantasy leagues. So go out there and get him. The second guy is Nick Folk of the New England Patriots. Folk kicking the ball well as of late, and the Patriots with a crazy beatdown on the Los Angeles Chargers, 45-0. Folk, another 9-point performance. He hit a 36-yarder and 6 extra points in this one. Patriots, they're starting to score. They're improving, and now he's got a good matchup versus the Rams, I believe, here in Week 14. The Rams, they're a type of defense that bends but don't breaks always, and I could see Folk having 3 or 4 field goal attempts in this one, and he's available in 96% of leagues, so he's a guy you easily could go out there and get on waivers. The next guy is Matt Gay, staying with the Rams here. Gay, another decent fantasy game this week here in Week 13. He had 5 extra points and a 34-yarder. So this guy, I think he'll be the permanent kicker. I know Forbat, he's on IR, but I don't see him coming back. So Gay, he's available in a bunch of leagues as well, 90%. You could pick him up, and I think you could plug him in and expect solid play from him. And next week, he's got a good matchup versus the Patriots. Another defense that is a type of bend but don't break, so he could have 3 or 4 field goal attempts as well. The next kick is Tyler Bass of the Buffalo Bills. This is a guy I've been talking about for weeks, and people still aren't going out there all the way and getting him. He's top 5 in fantasy points for kickers. He's still available in a whopping 65% of fantasy leagues. He's got double-digit fantasy points, is Tyler Bass now, in 5 out of his last 6 games. So this guy, he's kicking well. He's in a pretty solid offense. He's got a few good matchups coming up as well the next few weeks versus Pittsburgh, where they're bend but don't break. Denver, who gives up the 3rd most fantasy points to kickers. And New England, who's a bend but don't break defense too, that you'll get chances against. So Bass, I don't know how he's still out there in all these leagues. I keep talking about him the last 4 or 5 weeks to add him, and his percentage is going up slowly. But this is a guy that should be owned pretty much on every roster because he's a top 5 kicker, I believe, the rest of the way at kicker. And the fifth guy to add, Dustin Hopkins of the Washington football team. A great ball game for Hopkins. He had versus the Pittsburgh Steelers in the shocking victory for the Washington football team. 14 fantasy points Hopkins had with a 46-yarder, 45-yarder, 44-yarder, and a PAT. So this guy, he's available in 99% of leagues. This Washington team, they're for real, it looks like, especially on defense. And their offense, they don't really turn the ball over. So when they get in the red zone, it seems like they're getting more field goal opportunities of late. So Dustin Hopkins, he's a guy I would go out there and probably try to get here because this team, they don't score many touchdowns, like I said, and he's pretty accurate as a field goal kicker. So that's a few kickers I'm looking to add here on waivers heading into Week 14.